Okay, grab yourself a drink because tonight is so awesome. I'm really excited about this one. I had a lot of fun playing with alcohol pens and I can't wait to share with you 5 different techniques that we can do to use alcohol pens in card making. And I'm not talking about normal coloring. We are not going to do coloring techniques because I just don't have the headspace for that. I get so bored with color shading and coloring. I want to show you techniques that we can use alcohol pens like these ones and create fun backgrounds that we can use in card making. Now, these are new to me and I'm so thrilled about them. I was contacted by this company. I won't even try and pronounce the name because I'm not totally sure. But I have been on the lookout for new alcohol pens since I kind of stopped using Arteza and I haven't been able to find any. And I'm so thrilled with these ones. First of all, you can get ink refills, which is crazy cool. That's what it says in this pamphlet. And secondly, they have heaps and heaps and heaps of colors. There are so many colors. You get this cool little booklet that shows you all the different colors, all the things that they can do, the fact that you can get refills, replacement pen nibs. They seem a really great price point and they seem to be shipping everywhere. I looked all over and it looks like they go to most countries, which is really exciting. And they're on Amazon, which is fantastic. So I've color swatched all the colors with the little swatch chart that it came with. And then it also came with one of these little sheets so that when you're coloring on thin paper, you can protect your work surface. And then they also kindly gifted me an alcohol marker pad. I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do with this just yet. I used it in my video for one of the first techniques, but I didn't like how it looked. So I kind of went back to normal cardstock and I use a lot of vellum in this video as well. So huge thank you to this company for sending them to me. I am thrilled and I'm probably going to be investing into some more colors because they're awesome. Now, if you watched last week's video, I used vellum in my card making and we did a bunch of envelopes. I thought I really wanted to use vellum again today because I've got it. It's on my desk. So I thought I would use the thicker vellum, which is this 100 GSM vellum, just because I'm going to saturate it with quite a lot of alcohol. And so I wanted to have something that was a little bit thicker, that was a little bit more robust. So that's what I'm using in this video today. Now, the first technique we're going to do is the kind of subtle coloring technique. Now, this is not coloring in the sense that we're going to be doing ink blending and normal stuff that you would do with alcohol markers. We are going to add color onto our vellum in a nice subtle way that gives a bit of a pop of color. So what you need is either a nice background stamp or a more detailed outline stamp like the one I was sharing with you in the video. I'm going to use VersaFine Onyx black ink. And then I'm going to use some clear embossing powder. Now I'm using clear embossing powder and black ink because I want the black image, but I don't want the mess of waiting for the ink to dry for ages because it's on vellum and I find that takes really long to dry. Also, I don't want to have to worry about my embossing powder getting where it shouldn't be. And if I use black ink and clear embossing powder, then that means that I don't have to worry about that embossing powder being anywhere because it's not going to make a difference. It's clear. You can't see it. What we're going to do is take our sheet once we've stamped and embossed, we're going to flip it over on the other side. And again, the only reason I embossed it was because it takes too long for that ink to dry. These are the colors I'm going to use to color in this image. I'll put all the colors on the screen as we go so you can stop and pause the screen if you want to see what colors I'm using, if you've got these markers as well. And I have to say, after playing with these for about 3 days and doing all these different techniques, these pens are juicy. They are good. In my opinion, they are miles above Arteza pens. I love them so much more. So honestly, if you're looking for new alcohol pens, these are great. I'm really, really thrilled with them. And I will be personally investing into some more colors because I am so happy with them. So here's the finished product. I tried to keep within the lines as much as I could. I colored from behind. And you get this gorgeous pop of color. This is an oldie but a goodie technique where you can color in your images and it looks stunning. The reason you color from the back is because the alcohol pens will react with either the ink that you've used, usually unless you use a dye-based ink, as well as the embossing powder. It will react with that. It also gives you wiggle room to make errors because you're coloring on the back. You can color over those lines a little bit as well. Now I wanted to make a little card out of these. I haven't finished any cards for you in this video. I'm going to warn you now, but I will post my finished cards on YouTube in the kind of chat area of YouTube where you can see like the community section. I'll also post them on my Instagram and I will also post them in my Facebook group. All those links are in the description box below for you. I completely ran out of time. I had too much fun. I got carried away playing with alcohol inks and watching The Mentalist. And I ended up running completely out of time to finish any cards. So I apologize now. If you're looking for finished cards, they're going to be coming in a bit. I'm hopefully going to work on them tomorrow. So I cut myself a frame. I cut myself a little background. And my idea with this was I wanted to make a shaker card. I love vellum shaker cards. I love that you get this subtle view through the little like vellum window. And so I'm going to go ahead and add some shaker foam onto the back of my little frame and my panel that I cut. And I'm going to add in these little sequins that I've got on the right. They're kind of like holographic holeless sequins. They're really tiny. And I thought they would look gorgeous shining through that vellum. So I went ahead and lined that outline from the front of the card with some foam tape. And then I'm going to sprinkle my little elements onto my actual card base because I thought if I try and line that card base up and center it over my image, I'm going to make a big mistake. So I'm putting down my shaker elements onto the card front and then lining up my shaker topper over top of that. So there you can see the sequins moving underneath. It's harder to see on camera, but gorgeous in person. And obviously you get the satisfaction of that shaking about. Now I did a little layer underneath this top layer where I colored the background with my alcohol pen so it matched the colors in my actual image. Moving on to the second one, I am making these up as we go because I have no idea what to call them, but we are going to do stenciling and alcohol ink. This is great because this is really fast and fun and gives you a gorgeous background. I've got alcohol in a spray bottle and all of the alcohol I'm using today for every single technique is 99.9% isopropyl alcohol. Now I got mine off of Amazon. I'll link it down below for you if you're looking for some. I have this giant tub and it's lasted me about 1.5 years so far, and I just fill up my little spray bottles on my desk whenever I need it. I'm going to use these stencils here as well as one more, I believe, that pops in later on. And all you're going to do is scribble down some ink. Now these pens are juicy, so I don't have to scribble much. On the left is plain white cardstock. On the right is the alcohol ink pad, paper pad that they gave me. So you can see on the right it's a lot more bright. It's really sucked in that color. I think it would be great for doing coloring and drawing. But for this technique, it didn't work quite so great. So the first thing I'm going to do is put down this hexagon stencil. And I'm spritzing about 5 or 6 sprays of alcohol over that whole entire stencil. And then when you lift it up, you get this gorgeous, lovely impression. Because alcohol dries so quick. So there's no dry wait time. It's like pretty much dry instantly. But look at that pattern that shines through. It's so gorgeous. My plan is to either die cut out of it or cut it down into a card front. So I'm not worried about the edges, or you could leave the edges as they are and have this kind of rustic, rough scribbled effect. Now here's that cardstock that I got from the alcohol paper pad. This is the first and last time I use it for these techniques because it just doesn't work so well. It doesn't really lift the alcohol like I wanted in that first one. So on the left is normal cardstock. On the right is the alcohol paper pad that I got from the company. Now you can go ahead and do some blending. You could do some multiple colors. You could do color shading. So on the right, I've got purple hues. On the left, I've got multiple colors. They do ink blend really well. Here, these are completely dry. This stencil didn't work quite so well. I think the gaps were too big and it didn't quite show through as much. It does look a bit better once it's dried a bit, but I found the color lift wasn't quite as good as a more detailed, smaller stencil. Now, because I'm addicted and I couldn't stop there, I decided to go for some pink hues, and I did another octagon one which had a slightly bigger octagon gap, and it did look really nice. This one did work out quite well. I was really happy with the end result. So here are all the finished panels, and again, as I said, I will finish off some cards and I will post them on all my social medias, including YouTube under the community tab, just so you can see what I get up to with these background prints. But this is so fast and easy. It's literally scribbling and spritzing. There's no hard work involved. The next one, we're going to do coloring color. Now, I don't know what to name this one, but I thought this was a fairly good name. I'm going to put down some watercolor first. So I'm going to use these Paul Rubens watercolors. If you didn't know, you can pull these little trays out of the big trays. I didn't know that for the longest time. It makes crafting on your desk so much easier if you craft like I do and run out of space really quickly. I'm going to do a watercolor wash over the background using some watercolor card. These ones here are ones I picked up off of Amazon. I have no idea if they're good or not, but they seem to work fine for what I was doing. I like to spritz the back of my cardstock first so that it kind of sticks to my surface a little bit and prevents it from warping. And then I add a whole bunch of water to the top of the card, and then I'm kind of just touching down my paintbrush with the colors that I'm picking up from the watercolor pad. I don't know how to do watercoloring officially. I'm not an artist by any means, but I like to just kind of slapdash down some color. If it's not moving enough, I add more water, and then I get this kind of mishmash of color on my paper. So I did one very light-handed and one a lot darker-handed. And then I'm going to take a stamp and I'm going to go ahead and stamp over the top of both of them. Now, I didn't want black. I felt like black was going to be too much, so I decided to go with a gray. Now, I am very intentionally not using a pigment ink. Pigment inks will blend with alcohol pens. You want to use a water-based ink like a dye ink, and I've used Catherine Pooler's Slate ink for my stamping because I know that when I go over the top with my alcohol pens, that slate ink will stay exactly where I put it, won't blend with the alcohol pens at all because they're two different types of ink. So make sure if you're going to stamp and you're going to color that your stamping ink is going to be a dye ink and your coloring is going to be an alcohol pen. And it's the same in reverse. So if you're going to use like a watercolor brush pen or a watercolor, you want to put down dye ink. So you want to use like a pigment ink as your base and then your watercolors on top, and then they won't mix. So I went ahead and colored my first image, and my first image I did by coloring in the same colors on the background. So if there was a pinky purple color in the background, that's the color I used as my ink. If there was a blue in the background, that's the color I used in my ink. So we're essentially color matching the color that's in the background with our alcohol pen to make it kind of pop a bit more. Now, this was the second one I did where I wanted to add color on top of color, but not follow those color rules. However, when I stamped this image and I started coloring, I realized that there was actually no background space and you weren't seeing the watercolor wash behind it. So I went ahead and used this leaf stamp. I did muck up on those leaves on the top left, but I decided to color in some greens, and I used 2 greens per set of leaves to kind of get a bit more dimension and color. But here on the left is one where you follow the color pattern, and then the leaves is where you're coloring over top of the color, and they both look great. Now we're going to move on to alcohol watercoloring. I'm not sure if that's what it should be called, but it really reminds me of a lot of people that play with alcohol inks, like the actual alcohol ink droppers. We're going to fake it and do this similar kind of thing, but we're going to use our alcohol pens. So actually we don't need all those refills. We don't need all the big fancy inks. We can just use alcohol pens. So of course you could obviously do this with Sharpies. Any of these projects will work with something like a Sharpie brilliantly well as well. I'm going to lay down some color. I'm going to do 2 layers of color, and then I'm going to grab some cotton balls. Cotton balls are great for this. I'm going to carry on and show you different ways if you don't have cotton balls, but they're nice and economical to buy, and you can get them from almost anywhere. And all we're going to do is fill a little lid full of alcohol, and then I'm going to do some kind of pouncing down. So I've colored and scribbled in the background, but what will happen is all these colors are going to meld and move about, and it's going to look super cool, and it's going to take very little effort. So I've gone ahead and pounced down. I'm going to make sure that's dry. It takes about, 5 seconds with my heat tool because alcohol dries so fast and it's such a high concentration of alcohol. It goes so quick. So I'm pouncing, drying, and I don't want to pounce too much in the same place because it makes that color really bleed out and get more translucent. So here it is. This took me about 5 minutes to do. And look how gorgeous that pattern is and that background is. You wouldn't guess that that was a bunch of scribbles. You would have thought I dropped it down with some alcohol inks in like a little tube. I love this look. It is such a cool technique. Definitely not mine. I've seen it all over the internet, but I wanted to share it with you because it is so much fun. Now, if you're pouncing and you find that your cotton ball starts to get fluff stuck to it, because it can get a bit tacky and a bit sticky, just let it dry fully and then rub your finger over it and you'll see all that fluff will come straight off, and you can just kind of ball it up and put it in your bin or do what I do and throw it on the floor. I'll hoover it at a later time. So that's all I did with those ones. Now I've got a few different ones that I've already done with a few different color patterns. Again, with pretty much all of them, I've done 2 layers of coloring. So I scribbled and then added more color over top. This one I just did a line down the middle of the page. This one I did all over the place down the center of the page. Loads and loads and loads of fun to be had. This is why my video is so late tonight. This is why I have no finished cards, because I got so carried away with this technique and the next one that's coming up. So you can make some gorgeous fall colors or some normal, beautiful, bright and vibrant colors. Now, let's say you did some pouncing and it looks like this. It doesn't look so great. You can keep going, dry it, and then pounce some more. And you can add that gorgeous kind of watercolor effect to the top of them. Honestly, there isn't really any going wrong here. These were the first 2 that I did, and I thought, why didn't I get that effect that I wanted? And so I just went back in again with another cotton ball and it worked perfect. Now this one's really similar to the last technique, but we're going to use slightly different supplies to make the alcohol move. But we're going to do the same sort of thing. We're using our pens, we're putting down color, we're putting it down fast, quick and easy. I've got a pipette here on the left and I'm going to do dots this time. My original idea was I wanted to create flowers. I wanted to get the movement to work in a way that makes flowers. I've got this squeezy thing. It's like you put a pen in the top and you can kind of blow the pen ink around. I got it from Stampin' Up like 15 years ago. But you could use like an ear squidgy you know, those things you can get from the pharmacy to suck out earwax. You can use one of them. Anything that's kind of like a blower that you can kind of squeeze and control the airflow. So obviously this is cold air. I'm moving that ink without drying it too quick. It gives me a little bit more time to shift that ink around, which is why I'm using it. So I'm going ahead and using the pipette to drop a little drop of liquid. Obviously this is alcohol in my little lid, and then I can kind of squish it around and move it. So like I said, in the beginning, I was looking towards making flower type petals, almost looking like things, and that didn't work out, but I still like the effect that it got, or that it gave me, and I'm happy with the end result. Now, if you haven't got a pipette, you can also use Q-tips or cotton buds, as they're called in the UK. And I'm just going to drop it down, just kind of press down a little bit of that alcohol. And then I can do the same thing. And I'm really sorry. It's so hard to see what I'm doing because the squidgy thingy is in the way. But I am dropping down a bit of alcohol and then I'm pumping some air over it. And again, I was trying to go for these flowers, but I ended up getting this sort of splattered look. And it's quite cool. I really like the effect of it. Now you can vary in the size of your circles, so you could go with these little ones here, or like this one here, I did quite big circles, and I used the eyedropper or pipette and just kind of dropped down bigger blobs of alcohol and then kind of spread them around. This one I really went to town on. I kept dropping alcohol and splattering, or by splattering I mean spraying with my air pumper, and got a really cool effect. Now for this next version of this technique, we're going to do the scribble technique, and I decided to tape it down to my desk because I was adding enough alcohol that it was kind of curling my paper. So I'm scribbling all over, and then I'm going to spray the alcohol down, then come in with my puffer thing and start moving that ink around. So again, it's very similar to the last one where we're getting the movement in, but look at this. How gorgeous is this? We're getting the kind of swirls of color and melding of colors, and all it is alcohol pens. So again, if you don't have the ones that I've got, Sharpies work. Anything that is a permanent alcohol pen, you can make these techniques with. And I'm using my heat tool purely to dry up the speed up the drying process. That was way off. And get my crafting game on a little bit faster. I was having a lot of fun, and just using my heat tool for about maybe 5 to 10 seconds, it would dry all this alcohol super quick. Obviously, one thing I forgot to point out is make sure you're in a well-ventilated room, because really high concentrated alcohol is quite fumey. It's not awful, and I don't think it's that dangerous because, like, you know, hospitals use high concentrated alcohol for cleaning and sterilizing, things like that. But it is quite a smelly thing to work with. So do make sure your windows are open. I didn't find the pens had that much of a smell to them. My concentrated alcohol did, but the rest didn't. And check out this one here. This one's like a really kind of fall inspired one. I love the look of it. Now I did start to finish off some cards and create some cards, but I just ran out of time. So this one here, I stamped happy birthday and then heat embossed it. It's the same as I did with the background stamping I did. Now, the best way I find to stick down vellum is to cover the entire sheet of vellum with sticky. So if you have a nice big panel like this, get some double-sided sticky tape. This stuff from scrapbookdotcom is a beast. It is lasting me forever. I'll link it for you. It's 6-inch tape. This thing has been going strong for so long. You get so much on a roll. It is a higher price point, but for the amount you get, you will not be disappointed. So I covered the entire back of my vellum panel, and then I'm going to go ahead and lift up a little portion of that tape. You can see here I missed a little bit of that edge, covering it with tape. You won't notice too much when I go ahead and stick it down though, because it is a very, very small edge. So I pull back about 1/4 of that release paper, and then I go ahead and line it up on my card front. I'm using the left-hand side and keeping the right-hand side up. The left-hand side is the release paper and the right-hand side is obviously sticky. When I get it in the position I want, I then press down the right-hand side and then slowly pull the release paper while pressing it down with my bone folder, and then you get a perfect positioning of your vellum. And you can't tell I put any adhesive behind it because the whole entire thing is adhesive. Now you can do the exact same thing with die cuts. So you can cover the back with the adhesive first, die cut it out, and then you can go ahead and position it where you want it on your card and do the exact same steps of slipping out that release paper. And it's gorgeous. You can't tell there's any adhesive behind it. It's going nowhere and it's not going to pop off. Now I went ahead and die cut myself a butterfly out of the paper, vellum paper, and then a top layer of it. This is a paper rose die set. I'm not sure if it's still available or not, but check that out onto some white cardstock. That color really pops off. it's a great way to use up these papers as sort of a background image. Now I use these nested dies to create some more images. Of course, you already saw one that I did just now. And then I did the fall themed one as some kind of flower background images. You can use it with sentiments as well. So if you've got a layering sentiment set where you've got the shadow outline and the actual sentiment, cut the shadow outline in your like alcohol papers and then put the sentiment over the top, and it's gorgeous and stunning. Again, I should have backed these with adhesive before I die cut them out, but I got too excited and carried away and started cracking on. Here are some of the other ones I did with the stamped images over the top. And of course, I obviously ran out of time to finish any cards. So I hope you enjoyed all these techniques with me today, and I hope it was worth the wait, and I hope it was worth the length of the video as well. I had so much fun making all these different techniques and using alcohol pens in ways that you wouldn't generally use alcohol pens. So thank you so much for joining me. I will put everything I used in the description box below if I forget anything, because I'm very good at that. Please just pop me a comment and I will get back to you with the link of the product you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you this week at some point for some more sublimation makes. Bye.